So over to you, Jessica.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I know it's 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock sub, but you've got some tea and coffee. Those of you online, I hope you got something too. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our Student Champion program that has been developed under the NTutor program. I'll give you a quick overview of the NTutor program. I know Karina delved into it a little more this morning, so we won't spend too much time on that. I'll highlight the importance of student empowerment, and then we'll look at how we developed the Student Champion program at ATU, and then we'll look at our benefits, challenges, and opportunities from doing so. So just a really quick snapshot of NTutor. It's a 40 million euro project funded by the Next Generation EU. It's supported by THEA and the HEA. It's an innovative collaboration between 7 technological HEIs, and it covers 12 work packages under 4 different streams, under 6 themes. So it's a big one. This is just a listing of all of our partners. This is the same image Karina would have used this morning as well. And here are our themes. So we have UDL, sustainability, EDI, digital transformation, academic integrity, and employability. So as I mentioned, the program consists of 4 streams, but for the purpose of today's presentation, we're going to just focus on stream 1, and that's because the Student Champion program has been developed under this stream. So, student empowerment. We know that student engagement is important, but the reason why student empowerment just takes it up a notch is because it involves bringing students in as co-creators and collaborators, and it addresses student-specific needs by doing so. It fosters a more student-centered learning environment, and it also gives students an opportunity to give more creative expression and also opportunities to develop and explore their own skill sets. So I'll go into how we developed our Student Champion program. And so I just wanted to note, we mentioned 7 partners that are part of NTutor. Every partner has their own Student Champion program, but today I'm just going to delve into how we did it at ATU. So we were tasked with recruiting 22 students to roll out on NTutor initiatives and activities. And our recruitment and selection process included, the first thing we did is we did a call out for applications. So Martin, in our keynote this afternoon, he was just talking about how our student population is changing, and it's not a traditional full-time student. So we did a full call out of applications and gave loads of time because we wanted to ensure that we had applications from online students, part-time, full-time, mature. And we did. I'm happy to say we got loads of applications from all different types of students. We formed a recruitment panel with staff and student representation. So we had NTutor project members on the panel. We also had the Students' Union. We also had a gender balanced recruitment panel. And we shortlisted based on a scoring rubric. So what we decided to do is we asked the students, what is your motivation for wanting to become a student champion? We asked them to explain to us their commitment to one of the NTutor themes. And then we also asked them, what kind of skills do you want to get from being a student champion? And what do you think you can contribute to being a student champion for ATU? So we asked these questions both on the application and in the interview. And the students had the opportunity to either attend their interviews on site or we could conduct them online. And we had equal weighing of both application and interview scores because we just felt that sometimes people perform better on paper versus interview and vice versa. So just to keep it on the even level playing field, it was a 50-50 score for both of those. So once we selected our students, we welcomed them at a meet and greet orientation. We facilitated this online, and we gave them a quick overview of the NTutor program. We also talked about how their role would feed into the program, what would be expected of them, things that were kind of open. Don't forget, NTutor was very new at this point. It was year 1. And we were just finding our feet. None of us really knew exactly how we wanted to use our champions, but we knew that we wanted them to lead out in a lot of initiatives. We wanted to work with them, but also we wanted them to come up with ideas. But it's kind of hard for a student to come up with ideas if you don't kind of give them a context of what they're trying to do. So we've learned our lessons since, and I'll get to that in a second. But we gave them, and it also was a great opportunity at this orientation to meet the other students who were hired in on the program. They were paid for their time. And we have monthly team meetings where they meet with me. We talk about upcoming initiatives. We talk about any concerns or questions. And we also always have a space for them to share their ideas. If there's something new that they want to do, or there's something that nobody has said and they've got this idea and it's popped in their head, that's the place for them to do it. The NTutor project team at ATU and the academic champions support them. The dedicated team space is made for the champions and myself to connect. And Martin was also just talking about the use of WhatsApp. Well, the students have their own WhatsApp account. I have asked not to be on it. I think it's important for them to have, I guess, a community without me in it. But the team space does include me. So they've got both. They've got one with me in it and one without. And then we also supported them with any equipment and materials. Each of the student champions was issued with an iPad to support their work during their time as a student champion. So I'm going to give you a little flavor of what the student champions have done at ATU. I didn't list everything because I couldn't, and I certainly don't have time to talk to you about them all, but here's some of the highlights. So the students attended a hackathon, and some of you may have been there. This was an event where ATU staff came together with students, and they brainstormed assessment strategies. And what happened out of that hackathon is actually a publication called Big Ideas, which some of you may know as well. So it was great to see the students coming in. And the feedback from the students was very interesting in comparison to the feedback from the staff. And this was informal feedback, just a chat after the hackathon took place. And the staff were saying how fantastic it was to have the students there on the day to get the perspective and their feedback on assessment strategies and what they liked, what they didn't like, and some of the ideas they had about workarounds, about issues with some of the existing assessment strategies. And funny enough, when I talked to the students, I said, so what did you think of the day? And they said, well, we weren't really sure what it was going to be about. And we weren't really sure why we were there. So it's almost like the staff got so much out of the students. And the students were just kind of like, yes, we answered their questions, but we didn't really know why, you know? And so I think maybe it gave the students a little more insight on the back end of lectures and what it takes for you guys to figure out your assessment strategies and to set up your courses and course development. And I think it was an insight for them. And I think it's something that doesn't happen very often. So I think it was a special event for them. And one of the big things that they did work on is My Digital Backpack. So you would have heard Karina talk about this morning. She delved into the backpack and showed you kind of all the cool little courses that you can do on that site. The students didn't only complete these courses and the badges, and all these courses, mind you, are matched to the themes within NTutor. But the students also were there from the beginning, the champions. They looked at what features worked, what they did like, what they didn't like, color schemes, course content on the courses. They gave feedback on it, and then we tweaked those designs, or we tweaked the content. And if they didn't like the navigation of the site, they told us about what they thought you should go. Instead of going from here, you should go there instead. You should cut out that button or cut out that page. And so they were really core in the development of the backpack. And it was a true partnership, I think, on that one. And the design sprint is something else they did last summer. It was probably one of the first things the student champions did in ATU. Last summer, the Center for Sustainability in ATU held a design sprint on education for sustainability. And the whole point of this event was to bring students and staff together to look at ways on how ATU can be more sustainable. And it was think outside the box, be as grand, as expensive as it wants to be, anything. It was kind of like put anything on all ideas on paper. And at the end of the design sprint, the students and the staff got together and they presented their ideas to each other. And what was so special about this is not only did there some really great ideas come out for ATU, but some of these projects actually got funded by NTutor to be fellowship projects. So some of these, it went from an idea into development, and they're just about finishing up their work. And some of this came straight from the students, not from the staff. And so it was it's a real joy to see that, you know, the students to see it just from beginning to end. Under employability, the students, quite a few of the student champions are Lift leadership facilitators. And Lift Ireland is an organization which ATU has recently partnered with. I'm just going to plug this right here if anybody would like to be a Lift facilitator. We have training coming up in October, and there's more information on that on the Staff Training Hub. The students also have the opportunity to take in LinkedIn learning courses. Everybody at ATU can take a LinkedIn learning course, but what's nice about the ones that they were taking is that we mapped courses that were aligned to the NTutor themes, and we shared that pathway with the students. It's something we're working on that we hope to share it with all students going forward, but at the moment it's only available to the student champions. Some of the students also attended some of the staff development workshops. So those staff development workshops that you see coming through your ATU emails, the students got the opportunity to attend some of those because after all, they are ATU employees, so they were able to attend these. And one huge activity that a couple of the students are working on is a disability awareness course. We have a head came out with a Disability 101 course. And the students took it and said, you know, we should have something like this on our backpack. But when they went and did the AHEAD course, they said, you know, we feel like it's really a course for teachers and educators. It's not really for students. We'd love to have a disability awareness course for students. So I said, well, why don't you put a proposals together and send it in? So they did, and they are now working with the head on a disability awareness course. Once that finishes, we're going to share it with the disability officers in ATU for them to have a look, and then we'll see if we can get it tweaked. We'll have a badge attached to it, and it'll be uploaded to the backpack, my digital backpack, hopefully within the next couple of months. So it's almost like the activity flip. Usually it's a lecturer developing content and maybe tweaking it based on the students. Well, now it's gone the other way around. Students have developed the course, and the disability officers will be reviewing the content. And also likewise with the UDL, we have a UDL course on the backpack, and there was loads of input from our student champions who worked with the UDL Center for Excellence in ATU Sligo on the design of this course in addition to the development of it. And I don't know where that's coming from, but let's ignore it. So what did we learn? What did we gain? So what I could tell from the beginning is some of the students, and some of you who are lecturers would know this, some of the students were quite shy initially. Now maybe they didn't quite know exactly what was expected of them. Maybe they were unsure to speak up. Maybe they're just naturally like that. But what I can tell you is from the end of the 10 months of their contract, I could see almost all of the students, and all the students participating at a rate to where I didn't know who to go to first. The hands were raising, they were jumping into our meetings and our calls, and they were speaking over each other. And now I'm at the point where I don't remember who was shy and who wasn't, because everybody's making proposals, everybody's presenting, everybody wants to share something. When they attended the design sprint last year, they could really, they had a chance to work with staff. That was their first opportunity of really engaging with staff. And you could see that their communication, their team building skills were starting, and then some of them were already starting to present ideas based on things that were just coming out of their head, conversations that they were having with their peers. And you could see that those kind of skills were coming up fast within the very short amount of time that they've been working with us. And they also attended a team building exercise in Dundalk, and they had the opportunity to not only meet face-to-face with their own students in ATU, because don't forget, we're between Sligo, Donegal, and Galway. We rarely get to see each other. So when we went to Dundalk, a lot of us got to see each other for the first time. But they also got to meet student champions from the other partner institutes. And this was a day event. And by the end of the day, they were setting up WhatsApp groups and chatting to people, students in TU Dublin, SE2, and MTU, and talking about sustainability ideas. What are you doing in MTU? Well, we're doing this at ATU. Well, who's doing that? And so just like we talk in our own right professionally with staff members and academics, students are going to be doing the same thing. And the student-owned, probably this is the nicest thing that came out of this program, that has been coming out of this program, is the student ownership and belonging. I talked about the disability awareness course and those UDL courses that really engage the students with their feedback, their input, how the courses were going to be developed. And we even gave them credit on it. You know, it says developed by Jamie Clark, ATU student, you know, on the actual course. And talk about a sense of ownership. If you're giving credit to students like that, I don't know what better way to do it. Jamie's just about to finish with us and graduate, but that course will live on with his name on it. So our challenges, well, no surprise, students are busy folks, just as much as we are. These students are working, they've got families, they are carers, they have caring duties, they have work placement, they are studying. Trying to get 1 hour in any given day, in any given month, where the 22 of us could meet on Teams doesn't happen. So the work around that is I recorded as much as I could and gave the students an opportunity to watch it on their own time, which they did, I'm happy to say. Logistics, as most of us know, ATUs across 9 locations. And so this also it still proves challenging. It's always nice to have face-to-face, but it's really tough when we're across all the locations. So we do face-to-face when we can, and we try and have a couple of activities during the year. So more student champions, opportunity. We got top-up funding this summer. So I was able to get more student champions. Some of the students who graduated this year, we got replaced with additional students. And student champion proposals. In year 1 of NTutor, I think we were just finding our feet and trying to figure out, like I said, how we were going to use our students, how we were going to deliver on everything that was asked of us by the AGA and those work packages. But this year, I think we know have a little more better idea, and we don't need to have so much training put into the Student Champion program. So I've tasked the students with submitting proposals to me as to what they want to do for the next 5 months, for this next term. And the proposals are just starting to come in. And some of them are extremely ambitious, but I'm super proud of them for coming up with these ideas. Very cool things that they want to do in ATU. So more to come on those. And additional funding, as Karina mentioned, NTutor 2 is still up in the air, so waiting to hear more. But if we do, I can only imagine that not only will we have ideas as a project team what we can do with this cohort, but what these students are going to want to do in the next year should their contracts extend. So if you would like to learn more about NTutor at ATU, there's our website. And if you have any ideas that you would like student champions to work on you with, if it's something under one of our themes in NTutor, drop me a line. We're always looking for things to get the students involved with. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
So I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Adele, Dr. Adele Commons is joining us from DKIT and speaking on the enhancing accessibility of information to support the student experience.
So in DKIT, like many other institutions, significant emphasis is placed in providing academic support to students. Research has indicated that academic support is necessary for students as stress among college students continues to increase. Academic supports at our institution, like many others, includes the Student Learning and Development Centre, the Maths Learning Centre, the IT Learning Centre, and writing supports offered through the library. In addition to their lecturing staff, students have access to head of department, programme director, and a first-year convener who also provide support and guidance. While students are introduced to these supports and reminded regularly during their studies of the supports available, not all students avail of the necessary supports. Other resources are necessary in order to support students on their learning journey. Our Institute's website holds much information on various pages, with policies and guidelines relevant to students during their studies that can be consulted by students at a time to suit themselves. It is the combination of a variety of supports accessed by students that can increase student participation and engagement and support overall retention and student success. In my role as head of department, I'm aware of the formal supports available to students, and I encourage students to avail of these during their studies. However, I've become increasingly cognizant of the challenges faced by our students when encountering some of these supports. We provide a lot of information, mostly in the form of text-based documents, and there's an expectation that students will read and absorb the information required from policies and guideline documents. As educators, we sometimes underestimate the barriers that jargon and terminology that we take for granted can become for students. In a digital age, students also rely heavily on email as a mode of communication with staff. And there's a growing tendency to send a quick email seeking an answer rather than reading through the policy section of the website or ask a peer who may or may not provide an accurate response. It's also becoming clear that students are not fully reading their emails. Feedback from students at our department student forum also indicated that students are not fully engaging with information in the current manner that it is provided to them. Students indicated that email was not favoured by students as a mode of communication. So this prompted me to consider further how best I could and should be communicating information to students. So my paper today will present findings on my engagement with students on the development of a new department hub, demonstrating how embracing UDL approaches and using media creatively presents opportunities to develop supports for students that allow greater understanding of the language and terminology that in turn improves the accessibility of information to students and enhances the student experience in higher education. So when students commence their third level educational journey, they're transitioning from a different environment. They must adapt to a new way of learning and accessing information. In the new environment, there are new educational expectations, and the students are also faced with financial and social challenges. Upon entering third level education, there's a significant number of policies and procedures that they must familiarise themselves with, and there's an expectation that students will take personal responsibility in reading these and understanding new terms. Although students are introduced to policies at the commencement of their studies, with continuous reminders provided by email or indeed during class, some students still misunderstand some elements or do not take the time to read the documents. It is recognised that students receive a lot of information at the beginning of their programme, and they may self-select to filter information received at that time. As a semester progresses, other items may appear more relevant to students, including the completion of their assessments. There may be a perception that such documents are not relevant. For example, a common question that arises during departmental disciplinary panels for plagiarism among post-Year 1 students in our department is whether they have received plagiarism training. And respondents frequently noted, sure, this was covered in the first semester of Year 1, and they don't see it as important or relevant at later points in their studies. It is the misunderstanding of some terms that can lead to negative implications for some students. The Institute has made the information freely available to all stakeholders on the website, and while it is a student's responsibility to familiarise themselves with all documents, it is clear they're not fully engaging with them. While we were fulfilling our obligations in terms of making all documents available, this is not sufficient for the diverse population in our student body. The manner in which we are currently making information available made me reconsider how I could better support students in my role as head of department, and I wish to improve the engagement with such documents. So I hatched a plan. So I sought approval from our school research ethics committee to distribute a survey to students. So I sent an email to all Year 2 to 4 undergraduate students to complete an anonymous online survey. And the purpose of the survey was to establish the effectiveness on my current modes of communication on matters relating to their studies. And I also included some ideas on proposed formats of engagement to seek their input on the usefulness in making them engage more readily with information if it was presented in a different manner. In the feedback from the students, there was broad satisfaction with the information provided to them, and there was a strong desire for alternative formats to be used and to make the information easily accessible. And this feedback in the survey prompted me to consider how I could improve engagement. I'm very mindful of the diversity of students in my department, and I believe it is important that the opportunity to succeed should be available to all students and that barriers should not be in place that may adversely affect students during their studies. Last year, I had completed the UDL for Learning digital badge, and this deepened my awareness of the importance of UDL, not only in the classroom, but also in interactions with students beyond the classroom. I was influenced by Flanagan and Goldwaite-Fowles' assertion that a learning environment is not confined to a physical classroom. In my role as the head of department who does not interact directly with students in the classroom, I was therefore prompted to consider my communications with them. While my previous communications with students often summarised important information, the format of the emails were very text-heavy, with insufficient consideration of the presentation or layout. While I did consider the font types and the colours, it was clear that this was not even sufficient in ensuring engagement and understanding. So I wanted to try to see could I simplify the information being shared with students and provide resources to them that would be more accessible and easily comprehensible by a greater number of students. In the survey distributed to students, they noted that it was difficult to digest all information shared with them and that there was a desire for alternative ways of accessing information. I suggested the development of a hub on Moodle as a possible repository and outlined various items that could be available in the hub to gather their interest. Suggestions included step-by-step guides, glossary of key terms from policies, frequently asked questions, and how-to questions with answers. I liaised with IT services to set up a department hub on Moodle, And based on the student feedback, I created a list of potential topics and considered how best to display the information on the hub to ensure clarity and accessibility. My first step involved taking a number of key terms and topics from some policies and procedures, and I simplified the language used to explain these. Some of the topics chosen were based on the regularity of queries I received. I then considered a variety of formats for disseminating this information. I created sections on the frequently asked questions, glossary of terms, and screencast how-to guides. Following the population of some resources to the hub, I met with student groups to gather their feedback on the ongoing development of the hub and to ascertain their thoughts on the usefulness of the formats being used. I then created additional resources based on this feedback. It was clear that students favoured resources which were visually engaging, preferring short video presentations with simple instructions for some of the items, as this would engage them more. Students were very appreciative of the efforts being made to make information accessible and comprehensible. They were positive about the availability of summaries of policies and procedures, and they welcomed the alternative formats to policy documents. Overall, students were complimentary about the idea of being able to access the information in one central location, and they commented that it was a useful resource. Feedback from students in later years of their programme highlighted the importance of such a resource for students transitioning to higher education, either in first year or as an advanced entry student. Students noted that they wished to understand terms and processes relevant to their studies, but that the current method was not fully supportive. As a head of department, I have a responsibility to ensure information is accessible to students in order to support their studies. So my goal was to foster equity and inclusivity in terms of accessibility and understanding of the processes, policies, and procedures in use in the department. The positive responses to the hub highlighted the importance of making the information accessible and engaging. And my goal for the future development of the hub was to focus on what I called the CASES approach: clarity, accessibility, to simplify, engage, and support. So following the positive interest in the pilot hub, I applied for funding from the National Forum via Strategic Alignment for Teaching and Learning Enhancement to develop phase 2 of the project. My plan was to work with students in the further development of the resources. While the feedback received from students after completion of the pilot resources were useful in determining the types of things to include, I believed that the involvement of students in the creation and design of the resources and the overall hub would be of greater value to other students. Borrowing from the terms co-creation and co-production, this would allow for earlier involvement of students in the process. And for me, the voice of the student would be vital to the success of the project. So the funding allowed for the recruitment of 3 students to work for 19 hours over 3 weeks with me on the creation of the resources. So I circulated an information sheet advertising the project to students in the departments, and they were invited to submit their CV and a 300-word statement indicating their interest in the project and ideas they had for making information accessible to students. On account of the focus on designing audiovisual resources, applicants were required to outline their level of proficiency working with design and editing software. I then shortlisted the applications and invited them for interview. Applications were received from students in different years across different programmes in the department. Perhaps owing to their strong creative and design skills and their understanding of the importance of clarity of design and presentation of information, the 3 successful candidates were all students on the BA Honours in Creative Media. So I outlined to the students the types of policies, procedures and guidelines that I was considering, and I sought their input on items which they had found challenging themselves as students. And the aim was to have outputs available to students in the department on the hub on Moodle from September 2024 to be introduced to our first year students during induction next week. So in thinking about co-creation, some educators believe that students should be involved in the co-creation of curriculum. Bobble and others classify student roles as co-creators as including consultants, co-researchers, pedagogical co-designers and representatives. In this project, students were co-creators, representatives, co-researchers and co-designers. As project lead, I recognised that I did not have sufficient skills to bring the project to an appropriate design standard. While it was an option to work on the project with colleagues who had design skills, I felt that the outputs would be more successful by working with students who had design skills, but who could also bring in the voice of the student. Working on this project with students resulted in greater innovation and results, and ensured that I was not assuming what might work for the students by allowing the students as consumers to be actively involved in all aspects of the design. Brainstorm sessions were useful in determining the focus of our work over the 3-week period. We all recognised that it was not a long duration, so we needed to be very focused in terms of our desired deliverables, ensuring that they were achievable within the time frame. I introduced students to the concepts of universal design learning, and consideration was given to the formats for information that could be created to support and engage students. So some of our initial work involved the creation of templates and layouts. Research was completed on appropriate font size, colour, background colours, designs and layouts. And the students designed templates which then could be reused as new items arise that could be considered for inclusion in the hub. And this would ensure a common look and feel to the hub. Based on the initial layout of the pilot hub, students took the concepts to another level, and 2 important sections along with templates were created. The first one that they came up with was called Learn the Lingo, and this included short descriptions of terminology utilised in higher education. I should say the way I have the images on the screen, that's not how it's exactly laid out on Moodle. I just shrunk things just to include them on the slide for you all today. And then the second section that they come up with was a format to present the frequently asked questions. Other areas included short videos walking students through some how-to questions. How do I book a room in our building? And what do I do if I want to defer my place on the programme? Infographics were also created to quickly signpost students to the person who could help them with a query in the department or at institute level. And throughout the creation of the resources, there was a strong emphasis on design to engage students while ensuring a common design theme based on the institute and school brand. One of the unplanned, strong parts of the co-creation aspect of the project was that the students were involved in the overall design and layout of the Moodle page. The initial idea had been that they would create the resources, but with support from IT services, full administrative rights were given to the students for the final week of the project when we were ready to commence uploading the material to the hub. This was of immense benefit to the project as they had significant input into how best the material could be laid out on the hub for the benefit of the students. Adopting this co-creation framework for the second phase of the project ensured greater success for the outputs created. This was achieved not only in that the students selected for the project had greater creative skills than I, but also that they had an insight into how other students may understand the outputs being created. The active participation with students at all stages in phase 2 ensured open dialogue and engagement. And this echoes the work of Cook, Sather, Bovell and Felton, who note that while students are not disciplinary experts, they're experts at being students and therefore have the ability and knowledge frame necessary to contribute meaningfully to advancement of practice. Involving students in the process added considerable value to the project. And for me, the involvement of students had the benefit for both parties. The value to the graduating students should not be underestimated. I was like a client with a clear brief, with targets and goals, but with the openness to allow for significant creative input from the team. The students benefited from working with the client and working as part of the team. There were opportunities to share and receive feedback and engage in brainstorming sessions, research gathering, etc. Offering such opportunities to students are important in supporting the development of their graduate attributes and employability skills. While the second phase of the project was hugely successful in terms of the outputs created, it would of course have been preferable to have a longer duration working with the students. One negative aspect is that the group size of students involved in the project was a little bit limited. For greater student perspectives and varied voices, it may have been worthwhile to include students from different stages of their programmes and from varied programmes. But there was a benefit to including students in the final year of their programme as they had greater experiences than a first-year student. While the students working on the project sought feedback from their peers during the project, in terms of the templates, the colours, the fonts and the content, it is planned to gather detailed feedback from our students after utilising the hub, and this hopefully will support the future development. And I look forward to sharing the resources with our students next week at induction and seeking their views on its usefulness and further opportunities for development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adele. So that was Dr. Adele Cummins from TKIT. So our next speaker is online as well. unless he's here present. No, that did happen earlier. Jonathan Kelly from ATU is joining us to speak about an evaluation of how digital transformation has impacted the student learning experience within higher education. Okay, Jonathan, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Kelly, and I'm an assistant lecturer in the Department of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering in the ATU Sligo campus. And today I'd like to talk to you about a research paper that I completed during the year on evaluating how digital transformation has had an impact on the student learning experience within higher education. So just to get the ball rolling and get started, I'd like yourselves as the audience to have a quick self-reflection if you are using your own digital content and digital tools in your teaching. So have you actually thought about creating new content or refresh or redesign your existing content at the moment or presently? And if you wouldn't mind keeping that in mind for the next number of slides, and you get an understanding of and get a feeling of I suppose the process and journey that I had gone on when looking into this area myself. So to summarize this talk this afternoon, a part of the paper I completed, and we're going to look at the motivation behind the research and why I looked at it. So that's why I asked you that question in the previous slide, because that's where I started. As I was looking to redesign some content, some digital content for my coursework, and that was the initial starting point of why it led me on the rest of the journey. I went and evaluated and looked at some current digital education strategies, and I suppose the impacts they have both positively and negatively on the student learning experience, and through various research studies out there. And finally, we'll have a quick discussion on the effect that digitalization and the digital education transformation is having on social isolation and the well-being of students in higher education. So the motivation, first of all, a small bit of background about myself. So when I'm thinking about why I wanted to redesign some of my content, it was mainly due to the fact of my starting point in lecturing and my academic career. I began lecturing right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown in 2021. So if you think of how we had to get our information and get our content out to students, those days a lot of it was hastily deployed. It was prioritizing getting the information out there rather than how the students would actually receive that information and process it. So having a kind of a quick look around, a lot of them solutions are still in use today, and I suppose they're not up to date in terms of the pedagogical theory behind them. So to ensure that the student is central to the learning process, I wanted to update those solutions and that content. And coming from the engineering side of lecturing and education, a lot of the digital tools we already have in use, and a lot of the content is very much product based. So it's supplied in by a lot of manufacturers, engineering manufacturers and companies. So it is product based, and it doesn't prioritize the actual learning experience that the students do have. And one of the main elements to, I suppose, the digital transformation and the importance of it is the accessibility that the students have to the tools that are available and the digital content. And again, through the engineering field, a lot of the digital tools are actually behind paywalls and behind licenses, so that are used in a lot of labs and the practical areas and the equipment. So we do need to ensure that the students have access when they want to complete tasks or complete some labs as well. So that's another main drivers behind my motivation. And finally, by evaluating some of the existing tools out there and strategies out there, I'd hope to come up with the best practice approach to designing and utilizing my own strategies in my own coursework. So I suppose that the end goal from me would be to create my own digital content plus digital tools and apps for use in the engineering education sector. So to get me on the start of my evaluation journey and process, I looked at what's called the Community of Inquiry Framework. So that's a theoretical framework for the design and implementation of online virtual learning environments or online digital content. At the very center of this Community of Inquiry framework is the student educational experience itself, or the learning experience. So, and surrounding that is three main elements: the social presence, the cognitive presence, and the teaching presence. So with the social presence, so in an online environment or online digital tool, that equates to the engagement with the participants. So between the lecturer, teacher, and that discussion element and social side with the participants, and also for the engagement between the participants themselves. So as a peer community or a student community, that they can also discuss the content, the material that's being issued. The cognitive presence, so that's the material itself, so the material being taught itself, plus it also includes the critical reflection and the critique of the material at a later stage, to use the higher level conceptual analysis of the content and the theory. And also, where is the opportunity for them students to I suppose, to challenge the teacher, the material, and apply a lot of that theory to other areas or other problems that may be present or may be available. And then finally, the teaching presence. So that's fairly self-explanatory in terms of the mentor or the tutor is available for engagement with the participants during their studies, whether it be through direct dialogue and discussion forums, where the teacher can give feedback, feed forward, and direction on maybe project work, how it's going, so that there is, I suppose, an instant connection or instant engagement between teacher and participant with that teaching presence. So with that in mind, there's a second job for you to do, a second little self-reflection. And so if you are looking at implementing new digital content or digital tools in your teaching, so did you or are you considering the three elements of community inquiry framework when designing digital content? Or if you do have your existing content, are they implementing the community inquiry framework for good practice in online teaching and learning? So again, keep that in mind as we move through the next couple of slides, and you'll kind of be able to see, I suppose, the picture that came to me in terms of my research and the areas that I could focus on. So the start of the evaluation of some of the existing tools, so using the community of inquiry framework as the base to evaluate these tools and strategies, where the student engagement is central to the framework. So the first one is very common, and we're doing it today, is the online live video conferencing or the online classroom. So very quickly we can address or see that all three elements can be addressed very easily: the teaching, the cognitive, and the social presences, and can be addressed, and they should be addressed as well in terms of satisfying the framework. Although it is found that the social presence among participants can be easily neglected. So that's very, very simple. When you think of the in-class behaviours, which have in the past been viewed as suggesting engagement, such as attendance and participation, they do not have direct online analogs. So that's according to research done by Tai et al. And that basically just equates to, it's very easy for somebody to log in online onto a live video conference, which suggests they're active and they're engagement, but they could be elsewhere in the room doing different jobs or different work. So, and likewise, maybe give a quick thumbs up in a chat in response to a question. So it can be easily neglected. And then also, how do you promote the social aspect between the participants? So not just between the participant and teacher, but in between participants themselves. Can you create some teamwork activities online for them to complete? One of the great benefits of the evaluation is the asynchronous online learning possibility, with the recordings made available to the students afterwards. So again, this follows along with the Universal Design for Learning framework, where the students can and should be able to learn at their own pace as well, and there's multiple means of representation. So the students can watch back recordings and focus in on the areas where they need more clarification on, and I suppose learn and get a greater understanding of the topic themselves. The second strategy that was evaluated in the research was massive open online courses, or MOOCs, which are becoming extremely popular nowadays, especially for micro-credential courses and short courses. So with MOOCs, again, students can dictate their own learning pace, time and location, and they have a great reach globally. So students anywhere in the world can obtain a high-level certificate or degree, university degree, from their own sitting room. Another great benefit of the MOOCs was found to be the automated and instantaneous assessment, grading, and feedback. So as soon as the course is completed online and the assessments are completed, typically you'll have your grade and your certificate issued. So there's no waiting around in terms of graduation or marking to be done for your courses. I know this is I suppose a generalized MOOCs or massive open online courses in this slide. I know they're not all designed with this strategy in place, but I suppose the vast majority at this stage they are, and I know there is a bit of generalization here, but not all of them are. So some of the negatives that were found in the more common massive open online courses, the higher level learning and advanced conceptual analysis, which was part of the cognitive presence of the community of inquiry framework, is reduced or can be reduced depending on the design of the MOOC. This is due to, I suppose, the lack of teaching presence later on, that I suppose the content can't be challenged or critically reviewed later on, and the assessment is only of the knowledge that's given in the course, and there is no further, I suppose, higher level analysis to be completed. If the MOOC is generally a pre-recorded material, there is a minimal teaching presence, and which can lead to a lot of or a lack of clarification and confusion if there's a potential language barrier for the participants. So they may struggle to interpret some of the content or information that is given in the recordings. And then finally, there is also another lack of flexible learning and assessment. So the students have little input to the strategies. So once you start the course, typically it runs on a fixed teaching strategy, plus the assessment at the end is already in place. So again, following the Universal Design for Learning framework, students are looking for more flexibility in that assessment to have that ownership and control over their learning environment, which again does foster and harness a greater engagement with and motivation for the students themselves. So finally, with following the evaluation of the different strategies, we also have to take into account the social isolation and the effects that has on the well-being of students and the overall student well-being with the increase in digitalization of the education sector. So Brown looked at a number of studies, and he found that the social connectedness correlates directly with improved health. So one such study in 2016 indicated that the social connectedness diminishes symptoms of depression, stress, anxiety, and loneliness. So it's very important to maintain that social part of learning. Otherwise, that motivation, motivation and enthusiasm for study can diminish if the student's well-being is actually dropping as well. If there's symptoms of depression and stress or anxiety, then that will ultimately foster the drop in motivation for the study itself. And then also a report by the OECD also looked at how student services can be impeded due to the increase in digitalization of the education sector. So if you think of a lot of our campuses, at the minute, the services we have in terms of counselling and chaplaincy services, our medical services, and maybe the international offices, etc. If a student is studying online or doing online activities, they may not be present on campus or close to campus for a number of days or weeks at a time. So they are, they do have, I suppose they are impeded in terms of gaining access to those services over a long-term period. So to conclude, so we kind of looked at the current strategies in terms of our online video conferencing and our MOOCs, and they do reach an awful lot of students, which is a massive positive. But a lot of times they can neglect the social aspect of learning and the flexibility as well for the students to take ownership of their own learning and their assessment. So online engagement and social connectedness has to be very carefully considered in order to foster that the social aspect of learning. And I suppose with the increase in digitalization and digital online learning, there's probably new methods of creating that campus community. An online campus community needs to be looked at. The three main aspects of the community inquiry framework to be considered when developing digital content and tools, which is extremely important. So that is to maintain that the student is at the center of the learning process, and their learning experience is at the very center of the process to encourage the engagement throughout the program. And finally, an area that's probably opinionated, but I suppose there is a sense of this coming into play now, where existing on-campus learning is being kind of supplemented or replaced with some online learning. So that's where the lack, or where the student services can be impeded. And then also students that aren't ready to go into an online learning environment, but are possibly pushed there slightly, need to be, I suppose, minded in terms of it will have a negative effect on their well-being. So discourage the replacement of existing on-campus learning with online learning, as it can have a negative effect on the students that are not fully prepared for the online approach to learning. So if students have signed up to a full-time on-campus course, again, we should be discouraging them issuing maybe modules which have an online environment for that. So there's just a quick list of references used throughout the presentation today, and there's a full list with the paper themselves. So at this point, I'd just like to thank you very much and invite you to ask any questions if you have any. And finally, this paper was completed as part of the Research Cycle Foundation module that was delivered through ATU Galway Mayo. And I'd just like to thank the module leader, Barry McMillan, for his support during the process itself. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Ran a little bit over. So thank you once again to Jonathan from ATU, Jonathan Kelly.
Perfect. Thank you.
And so our next speaker is in person, I believe, Dr. Moore Fitzsimons, Senior Lecturer in Academic Integrity, ATU, and Zain Ali, Learning Technologist with ATU. So two speakers from ATU speaking on the ATU approach to academic integrity hub development.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Maura Fitzsimons. This is my colleague, Zain Ali, and we just want to share with you the ATU approach to academic integrity hub development. Thank you. So as part of our role, we were asked to develop a staff integrity tile and a student integrity tile, which was both part of the staff hubs and the student hubs. So we looked at all those areas, and Zain and I have been working quite hard on it for the last couple of months. So I'm going to talk to you basically about the broad principles about the academic integrity tiles, the background, the need for the initial movements in relation to it, and Zain will go on more comprehensively then to exactly what went into the tiles and the challenges and the solutions we faced in those. So first of all, the challenge of academic integrity. There certainly is a challenge for academic integrity, especially today in third level education. The ease of plagiarism. It is so easy now for students to copy and paste information. There's no need to acknowledge citations or references. We can copy images, texts, and even codes. So there is no implication for students if they do it. We also have students can now hire agencies or persons to complete their assignments through online services we refer to as contract cheating. And we have definitely seen a recent rise in that worldwide context in relation to contract cheating. There's also a shift in how students perceive cheating as well. Some students don't think that taking people's work and borrowing their ideas without referencing it is so much of a big idea. And we have to look at the uniqueness of some of the students that come to us from the various backgrounds within our institutions. We have approximately 23,000 students in the ATU. So we have mature students, we have traditional students, we have students who are international students, we have students with lots of complex issues and lots of complex needs. So when we were developing the tiles, we had to make sure we were aware of those, and we had to build structures to support those types of students as well. We also have to look at institutional responses to this absolute sensation that has developed in relation to academic integrity. Artificial intelligence is only a minor stone in that big bag, and oftentimes educational institutions are struggling to meet the changing, to keep up with evolving methods of cheating, and sometimes they lack robust policies and procedures in relation to deal with it because it's been developing on a daily basis. So that can be very much a struggle. There is certainly a need for comprehensive solutions to uphold academic integrity, and those solutions are very important. There needs to be consistency and fairness for all students. There has to be policies related to academic integrity to ensure that all students are held to the same standards, the same robustness, and the same expectations. There needs to be clear guidelines, there needs to be clear consequences for academic misconduct, and this needs to be very carefully and comprehensively communicated to all students. It's also very important that we support our educators who are very much faced and standing in the tsunami of these new developments in academic integrity. And it's very much important that we have clear policies, clear resources for them, and clear support for our educators, bearing in mind that we have diverse educators as well as diverse students. We have educators who work within computer science. We've also educators that work in the arts that wouldn't be as au fait with computer expertise as other educators would be, but they are educators and we must value them within our ATU, and that's very, very important that we do that. The other thing is we must need the importance of promoting existing ethical practices. It's funny, when I took up this role, I got the impression from some people that there was no such thing as academic integrity prior to me coming on board, and there certainly was. We have very good policies and procedures on board. We have very good standards that we have our students, we expect our students to meet. We have practices, we promote good ethical behaviour, and we are very much engaged in promoting students so that they can engage positively within our society when they graduate from our universities. And we're also very aware of the reputation of our new college and of our existing third level education institutions, and that's very, very important. So to top all that big problem of academic integrity, artificial intelligence, etc., we also have a new university. So instead of having 9 campuses, we now have 1. Instead of having a max of about 6,000 or 7,000 students, we now have 23,000 students, and we also have about 1,500 staff. So the problem is getting bigger, but we certainly have solutions in place. So the first thing we had to do was we had to set up objectives of the academic integrity hubs. So what exactly did we want? How did we want to prove it? What exactly how we want to go about it? So we had to develop academic integrity tiles to meet the needs of both staff and both students. Different needs, but they were all very, very important needs. So 2 key objectives were to ensure ethical academic practices among the staff and students, and the ATU itself were present, and also to provide support and direction to our students and faculty members in relation to academic integrity matters. And this was very, very important to us to reinforce what we're doing well, but also introduce new activities and new supports that our staff and our students need to be aware of. Because at the moment, the most crucial thing I've learned, certainly from today and from my experience of being in academic integrity, communication is key. Clear and appropriate communication is key. So we got involved in the development process then, and we felt really from the get-go there were 3 initial areas that we had to consider. And this was the technical input, the integration of the advanced tools and systems. And this is about including Turnitin, Draft Coach, Turnitin, digital backpacks, which we talked about already, webinars, AI mates, and resources as well for staff to develop or redesign assessments for their students. So it's no use telling an academic you have to redesign your assessments, not fit for purpose anymore. It's high stake, low stake, and there's going to be a problem. You have to support them, and you have to put in sufficient resources for the staff to do this. The other thing is we have to merge 3 hubs into 1 hub. So we looked at all the resources that were already there, and we had great opportunities to cherry pick excellent resources and merge them into 1. And Zane and I have been doing that in close collaboration with our library staffs from all 3 campuses to get the best of what's there already. And we also collaborate with all stakeholders involved. And collaboration is very, very important. It is so important to find out what people want. There is no use in having academic integrity tiles for staff, for students, if nobody's using it. So I spoke to the academic integrity champions, or the student champions, and I asked them what they wanted. And the one thing they wanted was, they wanted the lecturers in the classes to be talking about academic integrity. They didn't want it something to be separate. They also wanted resources that were user-friendly. And our staff wanted the same really initiatives. They wanted a one-stop shop. So they didn't want an academic integrity tile that you had to press 45 buttons to get what you wanted. They wanted something very, very user-friendly with various different methods of resources inside. So visuals, webinars, books, recent publications, guidelines, policies, all at a fingertips. They could, if they had 15 minutes or 1 hour, they could use their time effectively. So that's basically what they were the development process, the initial development process of it. So we looked at the creation then of the 2 academic integrity tiles, which are part of the hubs. So we focused on user friendliness. We really, really decided, because the message was very, very clear from our stakeholders, it has to be user friendly. It had to be accessible and ease of use to all our users, because we have a very dynamic teaching staff and we have a very dynamic and different student population as well. Education resources for our students that are student friendly, again, simple language, very important. Support services, so live chat, workshops, and counselling and counselling services for students to make sure that they actually understand what's expected of them. Access to policies and procedures, again, a one-stop shop. What's the policy on? What's the procedures on? Tools for lecturers, then AI-driven plagiarism detection and resources. And we have those in the new academic integrity tiles for staff that they can share with students to give students absolutely every chance of practicing with academic integrity. And assessment redesign as well as another area that we're looking at areas, resources, very simple resources to help our staff reimagine or redesign their assessments for the future for their staff. I'm now going to hand you over to Zane, who will go more specific into the two different approaches that we took for our staff. Thanks, Zane.
Well, thank you so much, Maura, for detailed introduction and background. So academic integrity is like a growing challenge, and the digital world has opened doors to the knowledge, but it also has opened door to the shortcuts. So we need more than just rules and policies and procedures. So we need a solution that engage, educate, and empower our community. And there comes academic integrity hubs. And this is not just about like preventing the misconduct. It's about building a culture of integrity, one that provides the resources to the students, faculty, and every stakeholder involved. So we use like two centric approach. Like first is the student centric approach, and the second is academic. So we're going to talk about one by one. So for the student focus approach, we focus on providing the resources and materials to the students so they can use into their fulfilling their assignments and the needs of AI tools like ChatGPTs. And the second thing is the integration with the existing academic systems. So the issue comes here like as 3 different main campuses and 9 total different campuses, and each campus has their own learning environment and they have their own different learning materials. And as we're talking about like centralized academic integrity hub, and we need a one centralized approach, and we need to build the resources which is accessible to all the students across the different campuses, and then providing the guidelines and supports to the students and the staff both. For that, we are working on like the live chat assistant, workshops and counseling sessions, which should be available in real time to all the students. So for part of the student tile, it involves the collaboration with the librarian staff, as these projects like started from like the ideation stage, and you know like starting from the ideation, it's building up like what you're going to include in that, how you're going to include into that, and why you're going to include into that. So 5 W's, 1 H, like including all. So we start talking with the librarian staff and teaching and learning staff, and we make sure like the materials and the resources that we're going to include into that that's covered all the needs of all kind of students, mature students, international students. There are online students, there are like research students, and then we also include the digital student backpacks, which include all the resources which are required for the students in their assignments, in their like short courses through which they can learn about the academic integrity, about the plagiarism and stuff like that. We make sure in our academic integrity tile, like the graphics that are used, they are user friendly, and it should be accessible, and it should accessible to all kind of students. And then the most important part is the declaration forms, and then integrating it with the academic submission platforms. So what that means is like, so that's a good work done by our academic committees who build the declaration form, which mention about like, okay, are you declaring like you use the ChatGPT tools, or you did not use the ChatGPT tools? And we are integrating this declaration form with our blackboards. So right before the submitting their assignments, so they are declaring it, okay, we use this tool or we did not use this tool. So students are aware of like they are using the ethical practices in their teaching and learning. The second approach comes like the academics focus approach, in which our goal is to provide the resources and the tools for the staff so they can redesign, rethink the assessment and incorporate their like the new word practices into their teaching and learning, and they have all the resources which are required in their in their classroom needs. We're going to talk about in the next slide, and then providing them the resources in their coursework and in their assessments. So we divided our academic integrity tile for the stops into three main different sections. The first is the policies and procedures, which is actually the main work is done by our management to develop the policies, procedures, guidelines for the staff and the students. Uh, and the second part is the academic artificial intelligence in teaching and learning, and in which we are focused on the assessment redesign. So as assessment redesign is, you're aware, like since morning we are in every speech we are talking about assessment redesigning and evaluation and using the AI tools in our assessments. So we are researching the different materials from our international resources like TESCO and the NAME, and incorporating their methodologies and trying to fit into our method in local ATU. So it solves all the needs of our faculty in the assessment redesign. And we are, so the third part is the useful resource in which we are providing the publications, webinars, short courses, and the academic patches. So the teachers have all access to the resources. So that's they should have, and we make sure like all the resources which is available there. It covers needs of all kind of diverse of faculty, like starting from the art background to a technical background faculty. So in the implementation process, our core focus was on the user friendliness, as we have seen, like if there is resources and if it is not accessible or readable, it will not be giving the full benefit to our academic staff. And then integrating with the existing academic system is like the biggest challenge, and then implementation. So while talking with different stakeholders, our technical staff, our librarian staff, we find out like the SharePoint will be the moving forward. So we are building on like SharePoint resources for the staff, the SharePoint resources for the student, and then we use the varied method of communication. Like we're just not providing the textual information, we're providing the visual information as well. And as I mentioned before, like the collaborating with the international our partners like TESCO and then, well, they are working on like a brilliant resource. It's the matter of fact, like how we integrate or how we make their like published material accessible to our staff and students. This provides full benefits to them. Well, like Maura already mentioned, like the challenges, like the mention, like the one, the biggest challenge, as mentioned, is the new university and like 9 different campuses and 3 main campuses, and each has their own different systems. And building one centralized was like the biggest challenge. And then having like rigorous meetings with all the stakeholders to make sure like we are fulfilling the needs of all different campuses and all different departments. As we are still working on completing this hub, so technical issues are the one of the challenge as well, and then like the continuous feedback is the how we're gonna improve into that. So in the planned outcome, so as moving forward, like what we plan is to listen, adopt, and iterate. So initial feedback from the students and the faculty as we are getting, and we are improving into that. And the success metrics will include like talking to the lecturers, talking to the students, like what they are looking into that, or what they are missing into that, or what they need more into that. And then talking to the librarian staff, and then the feedback from the program boards, and then meeting with the faculty and to discuss the impact of academic integrity tiles. As everyone is talking about like how we should like make our assessment better so we can like do the teaching effectively. So I think it's already like openness from the faculty side. So it's just a matter of talking and getting feedback from them and incorporating into that. So academic integrity is not just a project, it's a movement, and it's about like changing how we think about integrity and making it accessible, engaging, and more importantly, achievable for everyone. So let's contribute to make this a cornerstone of every learner's journey. And it's not just like a tick box or a check box for the academic integrity. So thank you so much. We would love to hear about your feedback, a question, or any thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maura and Zain. And apologies now, we have run slightly over, but we did start a little bit late. Our next two speakers are Laura Hegarty and Mairead McCann, both from ATU, speaking on exploring digital pedagogy, case study on universal design in a transformative tertiary project. So we'll just get your slide set up, Laura and Mairead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for this opportunity to bookend the day. And it's been a day of insights from AI through to engaging pedagogy, and our focus here as we draw a close to business on universal design, which we've heard referenced during the day as well. My name is Mairead McCann. I'm a lecturer based in ATU Sligo, and I'll be joined by my colleague Laura Hegarty, who's based here in ATU Galway, Galway City Campus. And really our focus today is to draw out some of the insights that we gained as ATU co-leads on a path for phase 1 funded national project that was really focused on the design and development of a self-paced online course on universal design. But our target student group were senior leaders across the tertiary education sector. So part of what we're going to do is really, I'm going to start off with an introduction to the project, setting the scene a little bit, some of the design imperatives that emerged from the project. I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of student empowerment that we've heard touched on again throughout the day as well. And then Laura will take over to talk a little bit about our insights gathered on the importance of student engagement, and also then on the digital pedagogy, particularly the design features of the course, and how we went about through the process of engaging with our target student group to gather information on their needs and expectations, and how then we could build that into the course to meet those objectives. So first a little bit, and I suppose it sounds like a mouthful, leadership and universal design for tertiary education doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but it represents a lot of interest and enthusiasm and energy behind that. So who are we and what have we done? The project emerged going back to July 2022 when the HEA launched the Path for Phase 1 funding, which was focused very much on the strategic implementation of universal design, inclusive of universal design for learning across the higher education sector. And at that time, AHEAD facilitated a national hackathon kind of thinking virtual event. And from that process, 4 national collaborative projects emerged, and this was one that featured on building staff capacity in universal design. The funding was targeted at higher education institutions, but there was a view that at that time there was an emerging focus on the tertiary sector, so that in collaborating to ensure that we maximise the impact of the funding across the sector, we took a wider view of including our further education partners and other stakeholders across the sector. So you can see ultimately ATU was the lead partner in the project with our partner MTU, but ultimately our steering group broadened out to include 19 different institutions across the tertiary sector, and that's captured in the project logo here on the screen, and our focus on universal design. And from those early collaborations and engagement, what we discovered was that there was already, I suppose, a great grassroots movement for universal design that had emerged in higher education, and really to acknowledge the work, the Trojan work completed by AHEAD and UCD in terms of the digital badges that were available for lecturing, administrative and support staff. But there was definitely a gap for a piece of continuing professional development to support senior leaders across the sector. And this was something as part of the process that we engaged in two symposium workshops at the ATU, MTU, UDL conference in May 2023, and then at the International UDL Symposium facilitated by Maynooth University in June 2023. So we did a lot of initial gathering of what was the target student group expectation, but also in line with the project funding about building capacity for universal design across the sector. And what you see here on screen are the key objectives that came from that initial engagement with the student group, that the senior leaders' needs, wants and expectations from the piece of CPD that we were developing were that they wanted to have a unified understanding of universal design frameworks and the opportunity to share effective practice. So in effect, building a shared language and understanding of universal design. To build a shared commitment to creating inclusive education environments so that there were smooth transitions and pathways for all students. And we've heard that a lot today at different presentations, you know, the importance, the focus on the benefits of universal design, but both within the classroom and beyond the classroom within our educational institutions. And the want to strategically embed UD across all areas of function. And that was really part of that wider national call to action, that we were one project across 4 national collaborative projects that were taking place and were featured at the AHEAD conference earlier this year. So really that real call to action was important to us. We got a lot of buy-in and goodwill for the project. Part of that came from the very inclusive process of the 19 different collaborators that were actively involved, and Laura will touch on that a little bit later. And to the extent that we got a lot of voluntary time given by senior leaders across the sector. I'm touching on the Altitude Charter that talks about the importance of senior leaders modeling best practice, and that's reflected, you can see just a screen grab of some of the content from the course where we had senior leaders provide digital content to build up part of the course content for us as well. Ultimately, to summarize, the main objectives of the course that we have developed has been to provide a course that standardizes and builds that shared language and understanding of universal design, but that it's an open resource to all with a strategic role or strategic responsibility across the tertiary education sector. And we very much focused on building in practical examples of how to strategically embed universal design within our educational institutions. A key theme of this conference has been student empowerment, and I think it was Jessica talked a little bit earlier there this afternoon about that importance of empowerment, kind of the handing over of some of our autonomy to students, and that was very much at the heart of our project. And part of what we did through the student, capturing the student voice was extremely important to us. So as part of those symposia workshops, which you can see in the backdrop there, was to gather that focus of how can senior leaders support staff, to empower students. And what we see here is just a capture of some of the student voice that's part of the course content in the CPD course. So an exemplar there, being able to choose how I complete my assignment work has enabled me to gain confidence in my abilities. The regulation stations give me quiet, safe space and helps me to cope with campus life. So this is a focus on actual practical exemplars of strategic embedding of universal design across our institutions. And it's at the heart of the course that we have developed. So I'm now going to hand over to Laura, who's going to talk a little bit about student engagement. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Laura Hegarty, and just to continue on from Marie there, what this project has allowed us to do is it has allowed us to enhance a national UD narrative through shared understanding and learning in the tertiary sector. So you've got your technological universities, you've got your ITs, you've got your ETBs all coming together to share the language that we would use and to bring this through the course design, the course terminology. And as well as that, sharing the expertise of all of the 19 institutes that are involved in this project. It has really allowed us to have, if you want to think sustainable actions into the future, where we can have these universal design actions and impacts outside from having the individual silos to bring them together to be on the one page. So it's more about coming together, doing more, creating those networks, having this cross-project collaboration has really allowed us to network, to meet different team members. And even, I know you can't probably see the logo up in the top right corner, but to read it out, the team that is behind this project are from expertise in teaching, learning, and assessment, digital environment, campus environment, support services, and social engagement. So it's all of those areas that are the core of universal design. And it's really a top-down approach is what this project is, to create 2 hours roughly of CPD for senior leaders. So we do a lot of the digital badges with universal design beyond the classroom. So that's a lot of bottom-up approach. So this is top-down approach so that our senior leaders, they can be guided and supported through different strategies that they can learn about through this project and through this course. So looking at engagement, you can imagine 19 institutions or organizations as part of this project. We had a shared workspace. We used to meet every bi-weekly for the project. We would have different expertise from different team members that would meet. Some of them would work on the logo, some would work on the instructional design. There was so many tasks, so many skill sets. So through all of our meetings and a project timeline, we were able to have a very positive collaboration and engagement relationship throughout this project. So I don't need to read all of that. A lot of partners in the project, a lot of collaborators from higher education, further education, and our network collaborators. So it's looking at the map, you can see there's a lot of placeholders all around the country. So we really hope through the power of collaboration, networking and engagement, that we would love this to be something national that will continue to grow as, I suppose, as we learn, very much like the UDL badge, very much like Beyond the Classroom badge, but this is from a top-down approach of CPD. So we're really hoping it will take the stage in that space in the near future. So looking finally at the digital pedagogy, the focus, I suppose, was around the course design. We needed to obviously keep very much in line with the UDL principal perspective. So we had to pick technology that was open access, that was easy to integrate with. The course has 4 units in it. Each unit is very much self-directed in its design, in its navigation. So it's very easy. And obviously through the pilot, which is actually on the next slide, we piloted the first unit, and we got some feedback from that in turn fed into the unit 2, 3, and 4, so that we were systematic in our design and simple in our design that allowed us to build a nice course at the very end, a really strong powerful course, because senior leaders they're busy people and we didn't want to overwhelm them with too much information. So very much you can dip in, you can dip out, it tracks your progress, etc. Very much action research through our workshops, our conferences and symposiums. It was very applied, and we were able to gather lots of feedback that helped us design the course. And the good news is, hopefully, we will have loads of senior leaders who will take this CPD learning course for themselves. And the idea is that they will share their experiences for each unit throughout their engagement with the course, and hopefully they will share that within their professional network so that other senior leaders will see it. And we hope to have a ripple effect among senior leaders in the tertiary sector to, to grow this awareness, because we need the support from the top down. And hopefully this is a start of that. So we were hoping to launch our course on the 11th of September. You may have received some information about this, but just very recently, and sadly, it has to be postponed just due to procurement and tendering of where the course is housed. But we will be back. We will give you another save the date, and hopefully you will all be able to tune in. It will be online, and we'll be able to share the course, give you a little snippet of what it looks like inside, and start to collect those senior leaders into our course. So that's just contact details. If any of you would like to contact any of us, Mairead, myself, Margaret Finch and Aileen, our partners in MTU, you're very welcome to contact us. Okay? And that's it.
No, we'll leave it there, Sarah. Just conscious of our time as well. But thank you very much.